What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected and composed actors takes a passionate stand on family rights and goes head-to-head with a co-host known for her sharp legal perspective? On today's The View, Denzel Washington didn't just promote his new film. Instead, he stepped into one of the most personal debates of our time. Should grandparents have more legal rights? What started as a simple conversation quickly exploded into an emotional confrontation that had the audience divided, the panel speechless, and Denzel leaving the table with one unforgettable final word. The bright lights of the View studio gleamed as the audience roared with applause. Denzel Washington, wearing his trademark calm smile and crisp charcoal gray suit, walked onto the stage. He waved humbly, leaning in for hugs from Whoopi Goldberg and Sunny Hostin before taking his seat at the iconic table. Whoopi grinned at the crowd. "We've got a legend with us today, y'all. Denzel Washington is here." The audience erupted again, some standing with phones raised, capturing the moment. Denzel chuckled softly, nodding in appreciation. "Thanks for having me, Whoopi. Always love being here." At first, it was business as usual. Joy Behar teased him about his latest film, a gripping drama set for awards buzz, while Sarah Haynes asked about his work mentoring young actors. Denzel answered politely, his voice warm and steady, dropping bits of wisdom about hard work and legacy. Then Sunny Hostin leaned forward, her legal pad stacked neatly in front of her. She had a spark in her eye, the kind that warned viewers this conversation was about to shift gears. "Sunny, I want to talk about something you mentioned in a recent interview." Sunny began flipping a page. "You said family, especially grandparents, should play a bigger role in raising kids today. That grandparents deserve more respect and, frankly, more rights." Denzel nodded immediately. "Yes, I did say that." Sunny tilted her head. "Let's unpack that, because in family law, expanding grandparents' rights has always been controversial. Parents have the ultimate say, and many argue that increasing grandparents' legal power undermines parental autonomy. What did you mean by more rights?" The studio grew quiet. The audience sensed this was no longer just a friendly celebrity chat. Denzel sat up straighter, his tone deep and deliberate. "Look, Sunny, parents are absolutely vital. No one's saying they aren't. But let's be real. We live in a world where more and more kids are being raised by grandparents, not because parents don't care, but because life gets hard. People work 2 jobs, they struggle with health or financial issues. Grandparents step up. They're not just babysitters, they're saving lives." The audience broke into applause, some shouting, "That's right!" Denzel nodded gratefully, but Sunny raised her hand. "But Denzel, with all due respect, giving grandparents more legal rights means courts stepping in. It means judges telling parents what to do with their children. Are you comfortable with that level of government involvement?" Denzel leaned forward slightly, resting his hands on the table. "I'm comfortable with us protecting family. That's what I'm comfortable with. We pass laws to regulate businesses, property, taxes, but when it comes to family, we get squeamish. And yet family is the foundation of everything." The audience clapped again, louder this time. Whoopi, sensing heat building, leaned back with a knowing grin. "Ooh, this is about to get good." Sunny maintained her composed expression, but pressed further. "You're talking from the heart, and I respect that. But as an attorney, I've seen how messy this gets. Grandparents suing for visitation, for custody, even when parents say no. Shouldn't the people who gave birth to those children have the final say?" Denzel exhaled deeply, clasping his hands. In a perfect world, yes, parents should have the final say. But we don't live in a perfect world, do we? Sometimes those kids have nobody but grandma or grandpa keeping them on the right path. And when parents cut them off out of anger or pride or whatever reason, who suffers? The kids. That's why I said more rights, because love and stability shouldn't depend on who's holding a legal document that day. The crowd erupted, with one older woman in the front row shouting, "Preach, Denzel!" Sunny gave a small, restrained smile, recognizing that Denzel had just landed the first major blow. "That's a passionate point," she conceded, "but emotion and law are different things. The law has to treat every case equally, even the bad grandparents." Denzel didn't flinch, but his eyes narrowed slightly. "And that's where we fail, Sunny. We act like protecting family is dangerous, like grandparents are out here trying to steal kids. 99% of the time, they're just trying to help." The tension was now palpable. Whoopi, looking back and forth between them, smirked. "All right, y'all, this is already trending on Twitter, I guarantee it." The audience laughed nervously, but the energy in the room had shifted. This wasn't a movie promo anymore. It was a raw conversation about love, family, and who gets to define what's best for a child. And Denzel Washington, usually the calmest man in Hollywood, was clearly ready to dig in deeper. Sunny Hostin leaned in, her eyes focused and voice sharpened. "Denzel, I hear what you're saying about families stepping in during tough times, but the law exists to prevent chaos. When grandparents are given too much legal power, it can rip families apart even more. I've seen custody battles destroy children's lives." Denzel nodded slowly, his expression shifting from calm to deeply serious. "Sunny, I respect your expertise, I really do, but I also know what I've lived through. My parents worked hard, but there were times when things got rough. My grandmother stepped in, not because anyone asked her to, but because she had to. And I'm not alone in that. Millions of kids are being raised by their grandparents right now. Shouldn't we honor that sacrifice? Shouldn't our laws reflect it?" The audience clapped, with a few standing to cheer. Sunny held her ground. "We can honor grandparents without changing the law. When you give grandparents legal standing equal to parents, you invite the courts to pick sides. And what happens when a grandparent isn't a safe option? The law has to be written for every case, not just the good ones." Denzel leaned forward, resting both hands on the table. His voice deepened, carrying the weight of lived experience. "Sunny, you're a lawyer. I'm not. I'm a man who watched his grandmother keep food on the table when no one else could. She gave me discipline, faith, and love. That's why I'm here today. So forgive me if I believe that kind of love deserves protection. That bond shouldn't be at the mercy of a parent who's angry or absent." The crowd erupted again, an older man shouting from the audience, "Tell it, Denzel!" Sunny pushed back, her tone measured but firm. "I get it, I do. But you're assuming every grandparent is like yours. What about toxic relationships? What about controlling grandparents who alienate parents? Expanding legal rights can give those people leverage they shouldn't have." Denzel paused, taking a deep breath. His jaw tightened slightly, a rare flash of visible emotion. "And you're assuming parents always have it together, Sunny. Some don't. Some walk away. Some battle addiction. Some just can't be there. Who steps in then? Strangers? Foster care? Or the people who love those kids the most? We talk about family values all the time in this country. Well, grandparents are family values." The audience applauded again, louder this time, with several people standing. Whoopi raised her eyebrows and murmured to herself, this is getting spicy." Sunny tried to inject humor to cool things down. "Okay, you're getting me emotional, Denzel. I didn't invite you here to make me cry." Denzel softened slightly, smiling. "I'm not trying to fight you, Sunny, but I can't sit here and pretend like this is just a legal debate. This is about kids growing up safe, loved, and connected to their roots. And right now, too many grandparents are shut out of their grandkids' lives because someone checked the wrong box on a legal form. That's wrong." The audience stood again, clapping hard as Whoopi raised her hands. "All right, folks, sit down before the fire alarms go off in here." The room fell quiet for a moment, almost like everyone could feel something big coming. Denzel leaned back slightly, his eyes glancing toward the studio audience before returning to Sunny. His voice dropped, softer now, yet somehow heavier. "Sunny, can I tell you something personal?" Sunny, slightly caught off guard, nodded. "Of course." Denzel took a breath, his hand resting on the table as if bracing himself. "I grew up in Mount Vernon, New York. My parents worked, but life wasn't easy. There were times when things went sideways. I was one step away from getting into the wrong kind of trouble, street trouble. My grandmother, Lennis, she didn't have much, but she took me in like her own son when she didn't have to. She fed me when I was hungry, prayed over me when I was lost, and gave me the discipline my young mind desperately needed. I owe her everything. Everything." The audience was silent, some visibly emotional. Denzel's voice grew steadier, but with a deep emotional tremor. "That's why I can't sit here and listen to arguments that say grandparents should just wait in the background, because I know firsthand sometimes they're the only thing standing between a kid and a broken future." The audience erupted, giving Denzel a loud ovation. Sunny leaned forward, her legal notes momentarily forgotten. "Denzel, that's powerful, and I respect your story, but—" Denzel raised a hand gently, not in rudeness, but conviction. "No, Sunny, hear me. You have your legal training. I respect that, truly. But I have my life, and I've seen so many families fall apart because a parent decided to use the kids as leverage. That's not love, that's control. And when the law sides with that, it's the child who pays the price." Sunny took a breath, visibly moved, but holding her position. "But if we expand grandparents' rights, we also give power to the wrong grandparents, the ones who do damage. How do we separate them?" Denzel looked directly at her, eyes glistening. "The same way we separate good parents from bad ones, case by case. We don't stop protecting kids just because some parents are abusive, do we? No. We investigate, we intervene, we do the hard work. Why can't we do that for grandparents? Why can't we protect the bond that saves lives?" The audience erupted again, several standing and cheering, one older woman near the front shouting through tears, "God bless you, Denzel!" Whoopi Goldberg leaned back in her chair, wide-eyed, whispering into her mic, "Oh, this is gonna break the internet tonight." Sunny sat back silent for a beat, clearly feeling the emotional weight of what had just been shared. Finally, she said quietly, "I hear you. I really do." Denzel nodded again, softening his tone. "This isn't about winning a debate. It's about making sure kids have every chance to grow up safe, loved, and guided. And sometimes that means giving grandma a voice in court when she's the one saving that child's life." The audience roared, some even chanting, "Denzel! Denzel! Denzel!" The clash wasn't just about law anymore. It was about heart, legacy, and a generation watching one of Hollywood's most respected actors break his calm demeanor to fight for something personal. The energy in the studio had shifted completely. What started as a polite discussion had turned into something raw and deeply emotional. Sunny Hostin, usually composed and razor-sharp in debate, leaned back in her chair and exhaled slowly, clearly processing Denzel's story. "Denzel," she began carefully, "I can't argue with your experience. And I'll admit, your grandmother sounds like she saved your life. But as someone who's worked in family law, I've seen the other side too. Grandparents who weaponize their rights, who use court orders to punish their own kids. It's messy, and those kids end up stuck in the middle." Denzel nodded, taking in her words. Then, with a calm firmness that cut through the room like a knife, he replied, "You're right, Sunny. Some people abuse power. Parents, grandparents, even the law itself. But when we focus only on the bad examples, we forget the thousands of kids being raised by grandparents right now because their parents simply can't. Those kids deserve security. Those grandparents deserve recognition." The audience cheered again, some chanting, "Amen!" Sunny leaned forward, trying once more to push back. "But you're talking about rewriting family law. That's not just emotional, that's legal upheaval." Denzel turned fully toward her now, his voice dropping to a near whisper, but carrying the weight of absolute conviction. "Family is upheaval, Sunny. It's messy, it's emotional, but what kind of society looks at the people who held us up when our own parents couldn't and says, 'Sorry, you don't count'? That's not just wrong legally, that's wrong morally." The studio audience exploded. People stood to their feet, clapping, whistling, and even wiping away tears. One man in the back shouted, "Say it louder, Denzel!" while an elderly woman near the front waved a tissue like a flag. Sunny looked down at her notes, then back up, and for the first time that day, she smiled. Not a debating smile, but a genuine human one. "You know what? I'm not going to fight you on that point. You've convinced me of something bigger than law here." Denzel relaxed back into his chair, visibly moved. "This isn't about winning an argument. It's about protecting a bond that saves lives. My grandmother did that for me. Millions of grandparents do that every day. They're not backup parents. They're heroes." The studio erupted into a standing ovation, louder than any applause of the day. Whoopi Goldberg clapped along and leaned into her mic, smiling wide. "Well, I think it's safe to say we just had a moment here, folks." The cameras zoomed out as the applause thundered on, capturing Denzel, hand on his heart, nodding in gratitude toward the audience. As the applause finally settled, Denzel Washington sat quietly for a moment, his hand still resting over his heart. He looked out at the audience, then back at Sunny Hostin, who was smiling softly. No longer the courtroom advocate, but simply another person reflecting on family. "Thank you for letting me share that," Denzel said gently. "I didn't come here expecting to have this conversation, but maybe it's one we need to have more often. Family isn't perfect. It's messy, it's hard, it's painful sometimes. But grandparents, they are the history keepers, the ones who step in when everything else falls apart. If we can't protect them, then what are we protecting?" The crowd applauded again, not just politely, but emotionally, like a church congregation agreeing with every word. Whoopi leaned in, smiling knowingly. "Well, folks, we started with a movie promo and ended up in a family therapy session, and I loved every second of it. Thank you, Denzel, for keeping it real." Denzel smiled humbly. "Thank you for letting me be real." The cameras panned over the audience, showing several people visibly moved, wiping away tears and nodding in silent agreement. Narration. Moments like this are why conversations matter. When one of Hollywood's most respected actors steps up to defend the people who raised us, it's a reminder that family bonds go beyond legal papers. They're built on love, sacrifice, and history. Whether you agree with Denzel or not, one thing is clear. This debate struck a chord. And judging by the standing ovation, he may have changed a few hearts in the process.
If you loved this emotional clash and want more powerful celebrity moments and debates like this one, hit that subscribe button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and share this video with someone who still believes in family.
Again, this story is a work of fan-based fiction inspired by publicly available information and general social media discussions. It is created purely for entertainment purposes and does not depict any actual events or real conversations. There is no evidence that the events, dialogues, or situations described ever occurred in reality.